Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of that Millennial John podcast. I have Rob Lawless here with me. I am super excited to share his story. One reason I want to get him on early is because a lot of the people that are going to be on the show I've actually met through him and his project. So something I value, I talk about all the time, is networking. It's so important no matter what you do, who you are, you gotta network, you gotta get out and meet people. Rob's taken this concept of meeting people to a whole new level. His project has been on Fox 29, PHL 17, Philly Voice. He's all over the place. He was in California a few days ago, apparently. Instagram told me. So let's learn all about it. Rob, what's going on? Tell us about your project.
What's up? Good to see you again. So the goal of my project is to spend 1 hour with 10,000 different people over the course of like 10 years, but if it takes 12, if it takes 8, that's fine too. But it's just to meet people, to see what comes of opening doors for no particular reason. So at this point, I've been doing it since November, so like 10 months now, and on Saturday I met the 350th person. So that's where we're at right now, and we're just gonna keep trucking until either I run out of money or someone sponsors it.
Did you say 355?
What's that?
Was that 355 this weekend?
350 on Saturday.
So if I ask you to name all 350 people, can you remember that many names?
No, not at all. I can't remember the names, but if I see someone, I'll remember the facts about them, because that is more specific than a name. There are multiple names for people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So since you've started this, the initial idea and how you got it going, has it changed at all since you started? Your mission of the project?
I don't know if it's changed much. When I originally started it, I thought I was going to be hitting people up, and I'd be like, we're going to spend an hour doing what makes you interesting. So if I met with a photographer, I would be like, all right, we're going to go around and take pictures for an hour, and I want to see what you think is a cool shot, and how you take the picture and whatnot. And it's really just turned into me chatting with people and hearing about their lives. So it's funny, a lot of people will be like, oh, you should interview this person, or he interviewed this person. And I'm like, I guess so, yeah, but I just hang out with them, I didn't have a notepad or anything. I mean, we chilled under a tree while it rained, so.
Hell yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I love, you don't use the word interviewing, because it's not an interview. You're literally hanging out, you're getting to know somebody, and if the relationship turns into something later, or you can benefit either way from something, which, personally, just from this project alone, and everyone that you've met with, I have benefited like crazy. Once I got out there and we shared, our experience, hey, this is what I do, then I started getting these messages, because the people that are interested in what you're doing are the same people that are, willing to do something like that, or interested in networking and meeting new people. So it's so exciting to see, even just meeting with you, where it's taking me, and I'm sure it's, doing some awesome stuff on your end too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's cool to hear that you're connecting with people that were also part of the project, because that's what I want to see. I think the coolest thing is when I can connect two people together, and you're probably more proactive about it. You go out and find people, you know what I mean? Which is cool. But it kind of closes the loop. It's cool when two people that I met meet each other. That's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you're at 350, it's kind of hey, do you know Rob? Have you heard of Rob and his project? And it's all over the internet. And it's that point, people are meeting me, and they're like, oh, so you met Rob? How was that? That's so cool what he's doing. I'm like, he's everywhere. I know. It's great.
Yeah. That's great.
So
it's great.
Now, what is your end goal? So you don't know if this might take 8 years, 12 years. You could be done in a month if you don't sleep. But what are you looking to get out of it?
Yeah, I don't know. I always tell people the end goal is just to do it. So I think the way I envision it, or the way I see it is like doing it is it's kind of like a tree. Like the trunk is just meeting people, and like whatever branches come off of it, I'm not sure what they'll be yet, but there will be like several branches that come off of it.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we're having this like chat right now is something that came from us meeting, and it's something like I couldn't conceptualize this beforehand because I didn't know we would be doing this after we had met.
Yeah.
But those are the cool things. Like if I just stick to meeting people, other cool things will come of it.
Absolutely. So my biggest thing is like I love meeting people, but when you get to a certain point in life, it gets kind of awkward and difficult. So like once you're not in college, you're like, all right, so should I spend some time on LinkedIn? Like, hey, do you want to meet for coffee? Seems like our interests kind of align or something like that, just to like get proactive conversation going. And it's a little uncomfortable. And I love that you've almost monetized that. So you like every single day you get to meet someone new, hear their story, and kind of connect with them. And what I want to know is in the beginning, how awkward was that? Is it uncomfortable still? Was it uncomfortable in the beginning? You know?
Yeah. I used to get more like I don't get nervous now. I used to get nervous in the beginning because like for the first 10 people, like now I have an Instagram where you can go on, you can see like, all right, 350 people have been part of this, so this dude's not weird. Like the first 10, it was like, hey, I have this idea. Yeah. Like, do you want to be part of it? And I couldn't show anyone anything. It was just like I emailed them or I shot them an Instagram message with a concept. And then I would build everyone up in my head like, to be like celebrities, which is something I thought was cool because like the fact that normal people would be celebrities to me. But yeah, I would go into the meetings and I'd be like, all right, here we go, like a little bit nervous. And I mean, at that point, like the first guy I met him in November and he was the only person I met that entire month. And then I met 4 people through the entire month of December and like 4 people through all of January. And now I meet like 4 to 5 people a day. So it's just become much more routine to me. And I think like with anything, if you do it that often, like you'll eventually settle into being comfortable with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So since you've started, what would you say is like your biggest struggle through the project?
That like from like an actual like tangible thing, cancellations are like they'll happen or people will reschedule and like if it happens like twice in one day, I'll be like, oh man, like that sucks. Like no one wants to be part of the project, you know. And then like I don't know, those bring down the optimism level sometimes, but it's also something that I've just like logically approached and been like, this is going to happen. Like every day someone will probably cancel. So like if I schedule 5 meetings, I hope to have 4 of those 5 meetings every day. But yeah, I think like, I don't know, someone else asked me that recently. They were like, so what's the biggest challenge for you? And I think because I don't have a lot of expectations or I haven't set real goals that it allows me not to be stressed about that stuff because like if someone cancels, I'm like, all right, that sucks, but it's not like I had to hit 5 today, you know what I mean? It will extend the timeline a little bit, but it doesn't stress me out. Yeah.
Exactly. That's good. Now, so where you stand today, it's funny, you said you had 1 in November, 5 in December, and now you're knocking out like 5 a day. That's quite the change in schedule.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to keep doing like what you do right now, let's say like 4 to 5 a day, 5 days a week, or are you doing 7 days a week? How often are you meeting people?
Yeah, so I will schedule like Monday through Friday. I'll try to do 5 people a day, and then I leave the weekends open. But then like sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I can only meet on the weekend. Are you available on like Saturday or Sunday?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, let's do that," because it's kind of easier to just throw someone into the weekend and leave it open. I like to like probably like 2 on Saturday or 2 on Sunday would be like cool with me because I do want to like chill a little bit.
Yeah.
And
you do?
Yeah.
You don't want to do this? You're like all day, every day?
Yeah. No, I know. Well, it's like hanging out with someone is such an easy task to do. So it's not like I just chill with people. So if it is on the weekend, like it's still fun to me. But now with football season, it's going to be a bit more difficult because I have to watch the games.
I mean, it's such a burden. You have to watch football.
Yeah.
So, you were in California recently now, and you were meeting people there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk about that. How did you end up over there, and how did you bring your project with you?
Yeah, so my one college roommate lives in Los Angeles, and one of his friends has like 435,000 followers on Instagram. So yeah, so he was like, you should come out and meet my friends. Like, they do what you do for a living. I mean, like, they use Instagram as a platform to sustain themselves. And I told him, like, I would come out, and I just wasn't going to pay for the flight to LA because I don't have an income right now. So, but I was out in Denver with a bunch of my fraternity brothers, like, a month ago. And on the way back, like, I was supposed to fly back at 11 a.m. and get back to Philly at 5 p.m. And they were like, does anyone want to give up their seat for, like, a $300 voucher? And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I went up and I was like, hey, like, what's the deal with this? Because I've heard of them before, but I've always had a job that I needed to be back for. And the guy was like, yeah, so new itinerary, you'll fly out tonight at 9 p.m. instead of today at 11 a.m. He's like, you'll fly to Phoenix and then you'll catch a red eye, you'll get back to Philly at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And I was like, nah, never mind, I'm good. That's too much. And then I texted my brother and I was like, yo, should I do this? And he was like, yeah, man, why not? And so I went back up and I was like, hey, is that deal still available? And he's like, yeah, we're about to bump it up to $400. So that's what they did. They bumped it up to $400.
Oh,
I got that, and then I used that to fund my flight to LA. So that's the only reason I went out there. But
wow, that's awesome.
And when I was out there, like, my buddy TJ set me up with a bunch of his friends to meet. I got set up with a street artist out there who was connected to me through an art gallery that I met here in Philly. So,
wow.
yeah, it's just like a lot of help from the people that I had previously met and my friends in recommending people for me to meet out there. So
out of 10,000, how, like, are you at the point that, you know, now that you've been to California and you've been in a whole new scene and you've met people across the country, do you want to take that and, like, travel more with the project?
Yeah, I do. Like,
just try to get some free flights and stuff.
yeah, that would be awesome. It's like a balance between wanting to highlight Philadelphia and then, like, wanting to meet people outside of Philly for the project. So when I was in California, I was like, yeah, this is sweet. Like, I like meeting people from other cities. And part of the reason I like meeting them is because I would sit down with them and be like, have you ever been to Philly before? And I'd be like, why not? You need to go to Philly. It's awesome. So I think, like, I've always said I want to do, like, the first 1,000-ish in Philly and then, like, do the next 9 as a mix of Philly and the world and, like, the country. But yeah, I don't know. I have, like, this thing I want to do good for Philly. Like, when I was out in LA, I was like, I could probably just, like, run through people over here because everyone is connected to someone in one way or another. But I was like, people already know about the people in LA. Like, I want to showcase the people of Philly. So we'll see, like, what that balance is going forward. I think I'd like to hit, like, DC and maybe Chicago in the coming year. But I'll always come back to Philly and, like, do people here and then go out and then come back and whatnot. You know?
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Man. So, let's see. What is your, like, favorite part about doing everything? Like, since November, what really excites you the most about the project?
I think, like, the spontaneity of it, like, the fact that I don't know what's coming from it, like, there's so many times where I just sit there and I'm like, how did I get here? Like, what am I doing here?
You're, like, sitting under a tree, dripping wet. You're like, what am I doing? How did I get here?
But those are, like, the best parts about it because you're like, that's what you remember, you know what I mean? But yeah, like, when I was in California, I was driving to meet this kid and like I met him, and then I met his girlfriend after him. But we met at his parents' house in like Manhattan Beach, and I was like, "What am I doing? Like, I'm driving a car to this stranger's house,
stranger danger."
just like hang out with him. Like, don't know him at all. But that's my favorite part because it's just like I otherwise would probably be like chilling in my home, like watching TV. But instead, I'm like visiting this guy out in LA. Yeah, and a lot of things like that happens a lot of times. Like the one guy I met with is like the director of Tune Up Philly. It's like a kids orchestra where like they have instruments donated to them and whatnot, and they just like learn music, and they performed at the Kimmel Center, and he invited me to go watch them perform, and it was like his kids and then the Philly Youth Orchestra and like all these kids who were so talented, and I was just sitting there by myself, like I was the only one that went, and I was like, this is crazy, what am I doing in the Kimmel Center, like listening to this orchestra right now? So things like that, the fact that they happen, make the project exciting for me, and so I'm always looking forward to when they come up, you know what I mean? It's always fresh.
That's awesome. You have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, which is like how I prefer to live my life for now. Like
Yeah.
I think when I'm like married with kids, probably don't want that lifestyle.
Surprise! I lost the kid.
Yeah, exactly.
So I see you're all over the city. Like we met at Paynes Park. You're at a coffee shop. You're at this park. Now, how do you end up picking where you're gonna meet?
It's mainly like just convenience. I'll try to set meetings up like in a similar area. Like if I'm meeting someone at Washington Square, I'll try to meet someone at Independence Mall just because it's like right there. So yeah, it's mainly a thing of convenience, but like so Paynes Park, like that area, if someone's coming from like Conshohocken or West Philly or something, like I feel like that's a good meet in the middle. Sometimes like I'll meet at the Schuylkill Banks if someone's coming from West Philly, but yeah, it's mainly convenience and also like free, whatever's free, because again, like the no income, so like parks are huge for me, and also coffee shops, and I think we'll start to see more coffee shops in the future because it'll start to get cold out. Then it won't be like sitting in the park in the snow, but
oh my god! Instead of being rained on, you're just like sitting in an igloo getting snowed on or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
that would be terrible. Yeah, and then like I wouldn't be surprised if eventually like restaurants catch on, because the reason I don't like going to bars is because you can't sit at a bar and be like, oh, I'm gonna order a water for an hour and then just not paying anything. But like you can go to a coffee shop and just get a water and chill because no one is really there to serve you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's.
When I go on a coffee date, when I go on a water date.
Yeah, exactly. Just use the location.
Yeah. Now, do you have like a list of locations that you're like, hey, I still want to hit these places, or are you at this point kind of like at 350? You've obviously been around our small little city a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there still places you want to go and meet new people?
In Philly specifically, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't have places. Well, one place I want to go to is Graffiti Pier, which I haven't been to yet. It would probably be like urban exploration spots that I'd want to go to. It's more like a photographer thing. I feel like a lot of photographers go to those spots that take cool pictures. But yeah, I'd like to see more of them, and then I'd like to see like just new spots in general. And I think if I get to a point where there's enough publicity on it, like a bar might be like, yeah, come in and we'll grab your drinks and you guys can chat here for an hour. If that starts to happen, then you'll probably see me like pop up at all different types of bars, because when I had a job, like when I was doing this while working a full-time job, I would meet people after work and I would just Google like bars that I hadn't heard of, and I'd be like, oh, let's go to this one. Like I'd never been there before. So that was one of the things that was really cool to me, was like I was getting a lay of the land of Philadelphia very quickly just because I was all over the place. And I would keep track of like if it was the first time I had ever been there. But that's kind of dropped off. So I'd like to return to that.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So in the beginning, you said you only had one person in November, and it was a very slow start, and you were pretty much like pitching this idea to people, hoping that they would be on board with it. So I assume that you don't really have to do that anymore. Is everyone coming to you at this point?
Yeah, most people will come to me at this point, either like because they've seen like one of their friends reposted it, or because it was like Fox 29 News or something like that. But it definitely goes in waves. Like this week was kind of light up until like yesterday. But again, like I'm meeting 3 people today, so someone might see some of those posts and reach out and be like, "Hey, can I meet with you?" And like I'll be like, "Yeah, let's meet on Friday." So I don't know. It's like a mix. Like, and I just reached out to a bunch of guys too, so it kind of like goes in like waves. Like whenever there's an article written or someone reposts it, I don't really have an issue with it. But when that stuff starts to die down, it's like me reaching out to people. But it's stayed pretty consistent since like the end of May when the first article was written. I think that was like the first time that people really knew that I was doing it, because I really never told anyone aside from the people that I was actually meeting with. Yeah.
Why is that? Why didn't you tell anybody?
Because I always had this like saying to myself, like, it's a silly idea until it's not. So like talking about it when it was at like 20 people, like people wouldn't really think that I was gonna like keep with it.
Like crazy Rob just wants to go talk to strangers.
They'd be like, "Oh, he'll stop in like 5 people and come back to reality."
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't I didn't tell any of my friends that I was doing it. The way that they found out was through that first article, because some of my friends shared it on Facebook, and then it was just like all of them started following me. So yeah, I don't know, what was the question again? I got off track.
I don't know, but it's good stuff that you're saying. So
Yeah.
I think I asked it like if you have to reach out to people and how like
Oh yeah. No, I would say like 90% at this point reach out to me, and then I reach out to like 10%.
So you start your first meeting was in November, right? So when did you come up with the idea?
I have a phone, like you know like the iPhone notes.
Yeah.
So I keep a lot of my thoughts there. I have a note from January of 2014. It says, "Introduce myself to 10,000 people in 1 year." And I was like, I'll do 10-minute conversations every day for 7 hours a day. And then I realized like that wasn't feasible. But I kept it in my phone, like, I don't know, I just never deleted it. And then it wasn't until like almost 2 years later, that November, that I like looked back on it and was like, yeah, I should do this. And actually, the first person I emailed, I think the first email I sent out about it was on October 1st of 2014. So I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna try this out now. Like, we'll see where it goes. And so, like, the first one is just the hard one, you know what I mean? Like, or the first 10, because after then you kind of have like a product almost that you can show people, and then it kind of rolls from there. But yeah, initially like January of 2014, it just evolved into something that I eventually took action on.
So let's see. So you had this idea like kind of way before it. You were toying around with it. Did you have like that gray area where you're just trying to decide like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and the next day you're like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it, because I feel like I have that problem all the time. Like I come up with this great idea, I'm like, all right, don't act on it for at least 24 hours. Write it down, sleep on it, and the next day I'm like, that one was ridiculous. Don't do anything with that idea. So did you have that struggle in the beginning, just kind of like getting in the groove of everything?
Well, I think like because it laid dormant for 2 years almost, like when I revisited it, I was ready to take action on it. So the other pieces, I kept like 3, they're almost like journal entries in my notes. It was just like I used to take the train home to Norristown when I didn't live in the city, and like sometimes I would write my thoughts down, and the one of them like I was just like talking about my experience because I had left Deloitte Consulting to go to RJ Metrics, and just talking about like how I felt about that transition and how I felt about my future. And one of the lines I wrote was, "My ability to meet people is what will take me to where I want to be." And it wasn't until like I read that a few months later that I was like, "Oh man, that's right. Like that is what I'm good at, is meeting and hanging out with people." And I was like, I should finally do this. Like I should take action on it. And that was what inspired me to send those first round of emails. So I think like for these types of ideas, it's like you need a window of inspiration to actually make you take action, and you need to take action during that window. Like the way I have compared it before is like when you're tired in the morning and you know you need to wake up, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna do it this time. Like sometimes I'll be like, all right, I'll get up in 10 seconds, and like you count down to 1, and sometimes you'll be like, no, 10 more seconds. Once you hit that, it's like getting up on the 1, you know what I mean? And that was me taking action to start the project.
Yeah, totally get that. So what I'm curious about, you have this like entrepreneur spirit for sure. What do your parents think about you? Like instead of getting a full-time job, you're just going out and meeting people all day. What was their reaction to that?
I think they're worried. Like I have a great family. Like my parents are super supportive, and they like every time I go home, they'll ask me like how the project's going and whatnot. I think my mom is definitely like, well, actually, like she was just concerned about me getting health insurance, and I have that now. So I don't know. Like, I think she still is worried and wants me to get a job eventually. But like, the cool thing is like the more I do it, the more credible it becomes, and I think like her worries will go down. Hopefully, the success of the project will
Mom,
go.
look, I'm on the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Mom.
Yeah, I know. I'm supposed to film a segment with NBC 10 this week.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and so like when and if that comes out, I'll be like, look, Mom, like I'm interested in this. So, yeah, I think it'll just be like a matter of time until they see things my way.
Yeah.
Because I like my mind, I'm like, yeah, this works out and it blossoms and it's awesome, and like my life is amazing, and like I don't go back to work. But for her, it's probably like he runs out of money in a month, and then he can't find a job, and then whatever. So I think it'll just be a matter of time until she sees things my way, and hopefully it does blossom and all, and I don't run out and can't get a job.
I don't think there's a chance that you're like not gonna make it with your personality and all the people that you're meeting. Like at the end of the day, it's like your network is everything. So when you have a network of 10,000 people and they're all like good at something, and you've kind of like got to know them, and then you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But it's just I thought about that because every time I go home, like I left my full-time job to kind of chase some of my entrepreneurial ideas, and I go home and they're like, so are you gonna buy a house here? Like, are you gonna get a job? Like, how do you feed yourself? Like I stopped by my parents' house the other day. I sat down for coffee, and the first thing that my dad asked was like, how do you make money? Like, how are you living by yourself in Philly? I don't get it. And I'm like, I'm fine, it's okay.
Yeah, I know.
Alright, so we're at minute 29, so we're going to be wrapping it up. But, so this is something that I'm going to be asking everybody.
Okay.
Hopefully you read, because my favorite question is for you to recommend a game-changing book, like a brain changer, something that, like, really hit home to you and kind of helped you through, you know, something in life, whether it was this project or school or whatever.
Yeah. So Malcolm Gladwell, like his Outliers book is kind of somewhat not the basis, but the justification for 10,000 meetings and like 10,000 hours. And it's like the theory that if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're considered an expert in that field. That was the first time that I'd come across that concept, and eventually did apply it to this project. And there were people who were like, well, we don't really know anymore if that makes you an expert. I'm like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. It's still an interesting point. But his book Outliers, it just talks about a bunch of like successful people and like the differences of why they were successful. Like I think it talks about Bill Gates and how he grew up in a family where he had access to computers at a time when they were new, and it was just like, or like hockey players tend to be born in earlier months like January or February, and then they just happen to be like the older kids and more developed in the leagues when they're playing. So it talks about like the behind the scenes of why certain groups of people are successful, and I don't know, I really enjoyed that, and it kind of like influenced the way that I approach things. So that would be my recommendation for book.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that it ties into the project.
Yeah.
So now some of the people that are listening and checking this out, they're like, wow, he's so famous. He's on the news. He's here. I want to meet him. So how do people reach out to you? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so either through Instagram, direct messages. My Instagram is at robs10kfriends, or via email. So it's just robs10kfriends@gmail.com. Yeah, either one of those, I get back to everyone, assuming that there's only like a manageable amount of messages coming in, which there totally is. But yeah, those are the two main ways to get in contact.
Awesome. All right, so everybody, spend an hour with Rob. You will not be sorry. You'll love it. You'll have a blast, and you'll be expanding your network like crazy. Is there anything else you want to say to everybody?
No, that's it. Go out, meet people. It's fun. You do it on sunny days.
Check the weather. But I'll never forget that hour, that's for sure.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks so much for taking the time and sharing your story, and I'm sure everyone's super excited to meet you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Rob. Talk to you soon.